Hello and assalamu alaikum everyone. I am Kashif Kamran and I welcome you all to the day 2 of the Advanced Audit and Assurance Practice to Pass webinar for June 2021 exams being organized by ACCA Pakistan. Now let's see what is the agenda for the day 2 of the webinar. Now, on the day 1 yesterday, we were focusing on the computer-based exams, and I was guiding you about the use of the practice platform, which I will be guiding you over the next 4 days as well. Alongside that, on the day 1, I was looking at the new article which was recently published by the AAA examining team, and we were left with certain part of the article which I will be doing today at the beginning of the webinar. But the main agenda for the day 2 today is to look at the business risk. So I'll be spending a lot of time today on business risk. The risk of material misstatement, I'll be guiding you about watching my March webinar, my March 21 webinar, which I did for ACCA Pakistan, and the day 1 of the March 21 webinar, because that was really insightful webinar in terms of understanding the audit risk and risk of material misstatement. So I'll be guiding you about watching the March 21 day 1 so that you are very good on the risk of material misstatement and audit risk. But I'll be doing a drilling of the analytical procedures using the practice platform. So that would be really, really important for all of you to understand that how would you perform analytical procedures if a question asks for using the spreadsheet available in the computer-based exam and the practice platform. So we have three things on agenda today. First, the article which was left incomplete yesterday. That's number one. And after completing the article today, we'll move on to the business risk. And at the end of the day, I'll be showing you how to use a spreadsheet in a computer-based exam. And just before starting with the proceedings, do confirm me that all of you can hear me. Okay, that's great, right? So you are all familiar with the agenda, right? So on the day 1, we were left with a certain part of the article, and I'll start with that article again. And once I complete the article, then I'll shift the focus towards the business risk, right? And then guiding you about the use of the spreadsheet in a computer-based exam so that you are familiar with the practice platform. Let's start on with the proceeding, and let's start on with the agenda. Okay, now yesterday towards the end of my day 1, we were discussing an article which is basically an exposure draft, and I hope you remember that. And the exposure draft, which is an updated article on the website by the AAA examining team, there were 5 proposed changes. And out of the 5 proposed changes, we discussed the first 3. The first proposed change, which we discussed yesterday on the day 1, was the role of the professional accountant, and the proposed revision to the code of conduct has highlighted and has reinforced the role of the professional accountant and the wide ranging role the professional accountant play in a society and in an organization. And the professional accountant should adhere to the code of conduct, and the professional accountant should adhere to the national laws and regulations. So that was the first thing we discussed yesterday on the day 1. The second big change which came into the proposed revision was the change of the definition. The definition for objectivity was changed, and I did highlighted the change in the definition of objectivity from being a negative toned definition to a positive toned definition. If you miss that out, then you have to watch the day 1. And we also discussed the changes which has been brought to the professional behavior of the uh, professional accountant. We also discussed about the introduction of a new terminology, which is known as the technological bias, and the definition of what basically is a technological bias. So if you missed out certain part of the article, please do watch the day 1. But if you have attended the day 1, I hope you remember that we discussed the first 3 proposed revisions. Do you agree with me? If you were there in the live session yesterday, have we discussed the first 3? The wide-ranging role of the professional accountant, the changes in objectivity and the professional behavior. I hope you got the terminology technological bias in the session yesterday. And then we discussed about integrity and how important changes have come in the concept of integrity, and so on and so forth. So I am going with the fourth and fifth one now. So to wrap up this proposed revision coming under the code of conduct. Now I'm using the same summarized version which I have developed for student, and I hope you remember this summary I was using yesterday, which I even shared with you yesterday over the WhatsApp group and even on the resources during the live webinar. Now, in terms of this summary, we had discussed the first three areas where the changes have come in, right? And we have discussed the proposed area 1, we have discussed the proposed area 2, and we have discussed the proposed area 3. So I'm not taking a recap of that because that will waste the time of the webinar, but you can watch the day 1 of the webinar to understand what was the proposed area 1, 2, 3 if you have missed out the webinar, right? Now, the proposed area 4, where changes have been made to the code of conduct, and you should be aware of that from an examination point of view. Now, on your screen, if you look at the fourth area, which is very, very important, the fourth area looks at strengthening. So the fourth area is looking at strengthening the code through requiring professional accountants to have inquiring minds, requiring professional accountants to have an inquiring mind. And the code of conduct have been changed, and they have changed the code of conduct to require the professional accountants to have an inquiring mind. I hope you all agree with me that in a AAA paper, we do use a terminology which is known as professional skepticism, right? But that terminology of professional skepticism is confined to the auditor. Now, the code of conduct, the revised code of conduct, is using a terminology of an inquiring mind. And this terminology is being used for the professional accountants, not for the auditor, right? So if I just take on my Word file for the day 2 in front of your screen, and we start with the objective of the day 2. What we need to do on day 2, we have to do three things on day 2. Number 1, we have to complete the article we were discussing yesterday, complete the article from day 1, which I have just started. The second thing we need to focus on is the business risk plus the practice platform. How would you do the business risk on the practice platform? And then the analytical procedures. How would you do the analytical procedures if asked for in a AAA paper, using the spreadsheet, using the spreadsheet. So these are three things I would be focusing on today, right? So let's first start on with the agenda 1, which is to look at the article we were discussing yesterday. So we were discussing the article yesterday. I hope you all remember that. That was the exposure draft in terms of the code, which is the new article published by the code of conduct. Sorry, new article published by the AAA examining team. And we discussed three areas yesterday. We were left with two. Now, the first area we are discussing in this article today, the fourth one, is basically this: professional accountants to have inquiring mind. Now, the code of conduct have been changed, and the code of conduct have been changed to require a professional accountant to have an inquiring mind. Now, I hope you all agree with me that previously, we used to use a terminology which is part of your AAA syllabus. I hope you all have heard this terminology, right? Professional skepticism. Is it part of your AAA syllabus? Is it a topic in your AAA paper? Professional skepticism, everyone? Right? So is it a topic? It is, right? But the term professional skepticism is confined to the external auditor. Now, this is a very specific jargon, professional skepticism. The meaning of the word professional skepticism means inquiring mind. But this is a terminology which is confined to the external auditor only. So the code of conduct thought that it is important that they use a different terminology. They use a different terminology for professional accountants. And which terminology have they used for the professional accountants instead of professional skepticism? they use a different terminology for professional accountant, and that is known as inquiring mind. So they introduced a new jargon, inquiring mind, which is the literal meaning of the word professional skepticism, right? Is everyone clear on this? So will you use the word professional skepticism for a professional accountant, or will you use the word inquiring mind for a professional accountant? Inquiring mind. And for the auditor and for the external auditor, which jargon will you use in the exam paper? Professional skepticism, right? Now let's understand what is the definition of inquiring mind, which has been used in the revised code for a professional accountant. And I hope you understand the difference between a professional accountant and an auditor. Professional accountant is a wide terminology, right? Which includes the different roles the accountant can adopt in a given organization, right? So I hope you all understand the difference between a professional accountant, the difference between a professional accountant versus an auditor, right? Are you all clear on this? The difference between a professional accountant and an auditor? Should I write it down? Right? The professional accountant versus the auditor, what's the difference? The professional accountant is a wider terminology, is a wider term which includes different roles adopted by the accountant, adopted by the accountant in a society, accountant in a society. I hope you know the different roles, right? You know the different roles which are adopted by an accountant in a society. You can be a tax advisor, you can be a tax consultant, you can be an advisor, you can be a management accountant, you can be a financial accountant, you can be a business consultant, etc. You can have so many roles as an accountant, right? You can have so many roles after qualifying ACCA qualification. So PA is a wider term, right? Which includes different role adopted by an accountant in a society. But when we use the word auditor, auditor is a confined terminology, is a confined term, which means the external auditor, which means the external auditor. Even the internal auditor, right? Even the term internal auditor is part of a professional accountant. But when we say auditor, by default, auditor means the external auditor, right? But when we use the word professional accountant, the professional accountant also includes the internal auditor. Is that clear? Is that difference clear between a professional accountant versus an auditor? Everyone? Okay, so which terminology will be used for an auditor? Inquiring mind or professional skepticism in the exam paper? The professional skepticism, right? And which terminology will be used for a professional accountant? Which terminology will be used for a professional accountant? Definitely inquiring mind, right? Now let's find what's the meaning of the term meaning of inquiring mind, which has been used by the code of conduct. So it's very easy to understand the meaning of inquiring mind, but let's see what is the meaning used by the code. No, the code is for the auditor as well as for the professional accountant. This is a code of conduct. If you read the full title, Gokul, the full title of the code of conduct is the code of conduct for professional accountants. So it's not just a code for an auditor, right? It's a code of conduct for professional accountants, everyone who is associated with an accountancy profession, right? So let's find the meaning of the term inquiring mind. Okay, let's go back to my summary. And in the summary, let's see what's the meaning of the word inquiring mind. Let me put that in front of your screen now, and let's start to discuss it. I hope that is clear to all of you. Let's start from here. Number one, reserving the use of the term professional skepticism for the auditor and instead using the term having an inquiring mind for a professional accountant. So I just made that clear to you, right? So we are reserving the term professional skepticism for the auditor and instead we are using the term having a inquiring mind for a professional accountant. So we've done the first bullet. The second bullet, the IESBA has therefore proposed to include the new application material which defines having an inquiring mind. So the IESBA has introduced new application material, and the new application material has been introduced which defines having an inquiring mind. What is an inquiring mind? So have they given a definition of inquiring mind? Can the examiner ask you to define what is the meaning of the word inquiring mind under the exposure draft? So should you learn this meaning for your exam paper, everyone? Right? Okay, moving on. The first, what is the meaning of the word inquiring mind? Number one, being open and alert for the situation and information that may require further investigation. So being open and alert for the situations. I think that's self-explanatory. All of you can understand that. So being open and alert for situations. That's number one meaning of the word professional skepticism. Let me take that to my word file. So the meaning of the word inquiring mind in the code, the first meaning of that is being open and alert for situation. I hope that's self-explanatory, right? Number two, the second meaning of the term, considering whether there is a need to critically evaluate the information obtained. Considering whether there is a need to critically evaluate the information obtained. That's very important. So that is also known as inquiring mind. If you critically evaluate the information obtained, is that the exercise of is that an exercise of an inquiring mind, everyone? So if you critically evaluate an information, are you demonstrating an inquiring mind as a professional accountant? And when you are open, are you exercising an inquiring mind? When you are alert, are you exercising an inquiring mind? So I hope you're understanding the definition. It's pretty simple definition to understand. Meaning of an inquiring mind. But what if the examiner asks you the meaning of inquiring mind for 2 marks or 3 marks in the exam paper? You should know it, right? Okay, the last thing. The uh, so on and so forth. It's now the definition is over. The definition just consists of one and two. The last principle, the principle of professional skepticism and inquiring mind are aligned in its application through different terms. Those different terms are used for clarity for auditor and professional accountant. Look at the last line. It says the principle of professional skepticism, which we use for auditor, and the principle of inquiring mind, which we are using for the professional accountant, have been aligned. That's important. In its application, though different terms are used. So is the meaning of the word professional skepticism and the meaning of the term inquiring mind the same? Everyone agrees to that? Is the meaning of the term professional skepticism and the meaning of the term inquiring mind the same? But we are using different terminologies for the auditor and we're using different terminologies for the professional accountant. Is that clear to everyone? So in an exam paper, you will use the terminology professional skepticism for an auditor and an inquiring mind for a professional accountant, even though the meaning of the both the terminologies is the same. So will you remember the definition, everyone? Will you remember the definition of inquiring mind being open and alert for situations and considering whether there is a need to critically evaluate the information? Okay, let's move on to the last element of the article. And then I tell you how would you prepare this article for an examination perspective. Okay, the last change which has been brought by this article, right? The fifth one. Okay, the fifth change on my next page of the summary. I hope you got the summary from my day one and you must have taken a print out of this. Okay, let's see the fifth change. The fifth change which has been brought in is emphasizing. So the fifth change is about emphasizing the importance of being aware of the danger of bias. Importance of being aware of the danger of bias. So as a professional accountant, you should be aware of the danger of bias. That's number one. And number two, having a positive internal culture in firm. So two things have been emphasized. Number one, the proposed amendment is emphasizing two things. Let's take it on the word file for better understanding. The fifth amendment. The proposed amendment, number fifth, is bringing and emphasizing on the importance. Number one, emphasizing is the importance. Let's make it a bullet, emphasizing the importance of being aware of the danger of bias when carrying out a professional work. And number two, having a positive internal culture in firm. So is everyone clear of the two areas of emphasizing? Importance of being aware of the danger of vice, number one. And number two, having a positive internal culture in the firm. Let's see what they mean. Now, the code of conduct is emphasizing on the importance of being aware of the danger of bias. So the accountant should be aware of the danger of bias. Which danger of bias? Including the technological bias, including the technological bias we discussed yesterday. So as an accountant, you should be aware, you should be aware of bias and biasness how biasness influences objectivity and professional behavior. I hope that's pretty simple to understand, right? How the biasness influences your objectivity and professional behavior as an accountant. We even discussed that yesterday. But you should also be aware of something we discussed yesterday, that how technological bias can influence the professional accountant. Did we discuss about technological bias and how technological bias can influence the professional accountant yesterday? Everyone? So can we get impressed by technology? Can we get impressed by the output of technology? Did we discuss that yesterday? If you attended the live webinar. So did we discuss about how technological bias can impress the auditor? How can you just get impressed with technology? Do we get impressed with technology? Is that a normal human psyche that we get impressed by technology and we normally don't find flaw in technology? Is that a normal human psyche, you understand? Even if I talk about as a tutor, I really get impressed with technology and I really start to rely on technology. We never find flaws in technology. But as a professional accountant, you should not just get influenced with technology. You should critically evaluate the outputs of technology. You should critically evaluate the outputs obtained from technology, right? Is that clear to everyone? So as a professional accountant, you should be aware of the danger of bias. Now, in the article, examples of bias have been given. Examples of bias has been given in the article, and you should read that as a student, right? I'm not reading that. Example of bias has been given in the article. Let me show you the page number. I put that in my summary, I think, as well. Uh, list. Please see the list of bias given on page 4 of the article. So that's right here. So you have to read the page 4 of the article. I'm putting it over here as well. Please see the list of bias given on page 4 of the article. So will you read the page 4 of the article? There is a list of bias, examples of bias given, which you should know for your exam paper, including the technological bias, right? So importance of the danger of bias. Please read the list of bias given on page 4 of the article. That's self-explanatory because every example has been explained by the examiner. So importance of being aware of bias. And the last thing, having a positive internal culture in firm organizations. Let's see what is a positive internal culture in firms and what does firm means here? Which firms are we talking about? And what is the positive internal culture in a firm? Let's go back to the summary. Let's see what the summary tells us about it. The summary tells us about the first thing. The exposure draft includes examples and a list of bias, particularly the technological bias, with growth of technology and the need for professional accountants to be aware of its danger when carrying out the work, which we discussed yesterday. Please see the list of bias given on page 4 of the article. So that's one. Number two, the IESBA also believed that the internal culture of an employer, whether it is an audit firm of a professional accountant or whether it is another type of an organization where a professional accountant is working, can have a significant impact on whether or not the professional accountant comply with code of conduct or not. So internal culture of an employer, look at this line. This is such an important line. I'm putting it here. Just read it and see if you're comfortable with it. Internal culture of an employer, whether it is an audit firm of a professional accountant or it is another type of an organization. Do we have accountants in other organizations like Unilever, like Procter and Gamble, like Nestle? Do we have accountants in every organization, or do we just have professional accountants in an audit firm? Everywhere, right? So internal culture of an employer, which employer? Not just the audit firms, even the other types of the organization, right? So that's the broad definition of the word employer. So the internal culture of an employer can have a significant impact on whether or not the professional accountant comply with code and act ethically. Do you agree with this? Do you believe the internal culture of an employer can really be important when it comes to compliance with code of conduct? When it comes to complying with a code of conduct, when it comes to complying with ethical standards? So do you believe if an organization have a good culture, if an organization have a good leadership can really make you binding to comply with the code of conduct? So the culture of the employer is very important, right? When it comes to compliance with a code of conduct. Let's see what is the definition of a culture used by the code of conduct. Let's see the definition of culture. You go back to the summary and look at the culture. Internal culture of an employer is most effective when? When is the internal culture of employer effective? So the internal culture of an employer is most effective when leaders and those in managerial roles hold themselves and others accountable for demonstrating ethical values of the organization. Is that important? The leaders of the organizations and the people in the managerial role of the organization hold themselves and others accountable for demonstrating the ethical values in organization, right? Is that an important part of the culture? Hold themselves and others accountable. So will that really ensure an environment of compliance? Environment of compliance. Number two, appropriate education and training. Should there be proper education and training so that you make people aware of the code of conduct and the compliance with the code of conduct? So should there be an appropriate training programs and education programs within the organization to ensure compliance with code of conduct? And lastly, ethical values are adhered in dealing with third parties. You should ensure that when you are dealing with third parties like customers and suppliers and banks, you also demonstrate your ethical values. So three things are important, right? A, B, C. I'm just taking the A, B, C on my Word file because they're part of the internal culture, which you should know for an exam paper. So what are three things as part of the internal culture? Number one, leaders and those in the managerial role should hold themselves accountable for demonstrating the ethical values. Number two, there should be appropriate education and training. There should be appropriate education and training in the organization. And number C, you should follow the ethical principles when you are dealing with the third parties. So will you remember the definition of an internal culture, everyone? So hold themselves and other accountable. Number one, appropriate education and training. Number two, and adhering in with ethics when dealing with third parties. Is that clear? So will you remember the 5 changes which has been brought into the code, whether they are new things or whether they are reinforcements? Now, how would you go about preparing this article from an examination point of view? That's a big question. How to prepare this article for exam purpose? I think that's the big question which I should solve and exit from this article. Now, if you're preparing this article for an examination point of view, first of all, what you should do. Firstly, I would prefer that go through, you just go through the article published before you read my summary. You just go through the article published and try to understand it yourself. Now, you also have my webinar where I've covered the article. So that will really help you. But first, go through the article published, try to understand it yourself. Secondly, read my summary of changes, the 5 key changes which has been brought in the article. Read my summary of changes, 5 key changes, and remember them for examination point, and remember them for your exams, right? So read through my summary, the 5 changes, remember them for your exams. Ensure all definitions covered all definitions covered within the exposure draft are all definitions covered within exposure drafts are remembered. Sorry, all definitions covered within exposure drafts are on your fingertips. That's very important. So all definitions will be very, very important, because I mentioned that yesterday. Whenever a new article is published, examiner test it for knowledge. So examiner can ask you the definition. So ensure all definitions covered within exposure drafts are on your fingertips. Now, some of the key definitions. I think we got a definition of objectivity yesterday, and we got a definition of integrity yesterday, if I'm not wrong. We got a definition of inquiring mind today, and we got a definition of some sort of a definition of internal culture of a firm. I think these are key terminologies: objectivity, integrity, inquiring mind, and internal culture of a firm. And even we got through a definition, if I'm not missing it. Just let me confirm that from my previous day. Okay, we got the definition of integrity yesterday. We got a definition of fine. So that's the two definitions, right? So definitions of objectivity, definitions of integrity, inquiring mind, and internal culture of firm. So you should ensure that you covered all the definitions, and you should just read through my summary and have the changes on your mind. Now, ensure whenever a new whenever a new exposure draft is tested, the examiner test it for knowledge. So examiner can ask you a lot of knowledge from this article. Yes, even you can know the definition of a professional accountant. What is the definition of a professional accountant? Even you can know the definition of a BICE, page number 4. Definition of BICE covered on page 4 of the article. Page 4 of the article, including the technological BICE. Technological BICE. So we are not sure, but as per the practices of the examiner, you can expect something like 10 marks from this article, whereby the examiner asks you something about objectivity or something about integrity. You know, ethical and professional issues is a very important syllabus area, and you know examiner likes ethical and professional issues a lot. He might ask this in question number 1, 2, or 3. So is that clear to everyone? Will the day 1 and day 2 help you go through this article? So as a tutor, have I encouraged all of you to read this article? Have I given you the direction? Have I given you the right direction to follow? Now it's your responsibility, right? That you follow the direction. So will you download this article? Will you read this article? Will you read my summary? Will you ensure all the key definitions are covered? And if you get something like 5 to 10 marks in the exam paper, will you be stressed out? Or will you realize the importance of this webinar, which has given you the right direction, right? Okay, now with that clearing, let's formally start with day 2, and let's formally start with the agenda of the day 2. Now we are on day 2, and finally we are starting about the day 2 agenda. Now, in terms of the main agenda of the day 2, we have to cover business risk. And the reason why I am covering business risk today is that in my last webinar, which I conducted for March exams, uh, just to give you an idea, that in my March 2021 webinar, right, the day 1, which is available on my YouTube channel, and even the hyperlink of that is given on the day 1 of the webinar. On the day 1 of my March 2021 webinar, I comprehensively covered audit risk, and I comprehensively covered the risk of material misstatement, and I comprehensively covered the marking schemes of the audit risk and risk of material misstatements. I comprehensively covered the marking scheme of analytical procedures. So you need to watch the day 1. It is highly recommended. Analytical procedures, the marking scheme of analytical procedures. So if you want to be good for June exams, you need to watch the day 1 of March 2021 along with the day 2 of the June 2021 exams. So marking scheme for audit risk and the ROM, and the marking scheme for analytical procedures, the do's and don'ts, the do's and don'ts, even the examiner criticism, everything was covered in the day 1 of my previous webinar. So I just don't want to repeat things. So when there is a library available, I can encourage you to go and watch the library instead of repeating the same material again and again. I hope you're clear on that. So instead of repeating the same material, you should go down and watch the March 2021 webinar day one, and it's on my YouTube channel. I even shown you my YouTube channel yesterday, which you can see in front of your screen. And on my YouTube channel, you can scroll down and you can see the day one here, the day one of the Practice to Pass webinar. If I can just highlight that for you, see this, the day one of the March 21 Practice to Pass. Can you all see this? So there is a day one of March 21 Practice to Pass, which you can just click on and you can watch it, right? I can again share the link of my uh, YouTube channel with all of you so you can explore it, not just for the webinar, but for other videos as well. I've shared the YouTube link with all of you in the chat box. Have you got it? So you go to this channel and you explore the day one of the March 21 Practice to Pass, and you can be very good on audit risk and ROM. Is that clear to everyone? Have you got the link? Can you confirm that, everyone? Okay, that's great. Now move back. So I thought I should cover business risk in detail this time. I spent a lot less time on business risk in my previous webinar, so I thought it's very important that I spend a good time on business risk in my June 2021 webinar, so I can give you a very good guidance on the business risk, and you can really be excellent on business risk in from examination point of view. So that's the agenda we are exploring today, right? So let's start on with the journey of business risk in this webinar. Okay, now let's see what we need to understand for business risk, right? Now, first of all, when you're preparing for business risk, how would you go about preparing for business risk? Preparing. The first step, when you're preparing for business risk, how would you prepare it? Number one, you need to read the article, exam technique article, part 2, risk. You need to read the article, exam technique article, part 2, risk. Let me confirm, it's the part 2 risk, right? If I take you to the web articles, yes, it's a part 2 risk. I hope you can see this article on the ACCA website. It's already in the resources I've shared with you. If you can see your resources, in the resources you have articles to read. Can you see this article, exam technique article part 2 on your screen? Can all of you confirm that? Okay, so this article, right? Exam technique article part 2 risk. This article, if I just click on it and you come here, see this exam technique article part 2 risk. You have to read this article because this covers entire risk for the AAA paper. Now, in this article, when you read through this article, part 2 risk, this article covers not only the business risk, but this also covers risk of material misstatement and audit risk. But you will read the article, exam technique article part 2 risk, to be good at the understanding of business risk. That's number one. Now, once you're good on the understanding of business risk, you know what is a business risk, you know the examples of business risk, and you've read the article, make your notes. Make your notes after reading the article, right? Now, once you know what is a business risk and you have made your notes, the next, what will you do? You will read examiner criticism on business risk. You will read examiner criticism on business risk by downloading examiner reports from by downloading the September 2017 examiner report and by downloading December 2018 examiner report, because these are the two recent instances where business risk was published by ACCA and it's available. So you will download the examiner reports for September 2017 and December 2018. I'll be showing you that in my session today, but you will download the examiner reports for September 2017 and December 2018, and you will read the criticism of the examiner on business risk so that you know the do's and don'ts, so that you know the do's and don'ts of business risk before you start attempting a question. So once you know the knowledge of business risk, once you have made your notes of business risk, once you have read the criticism of the examiner and you know the do's and don'ts of the business risk, now you are in an ideal capacity to start practicing the business risk. Fourth thing, read the marking scheme. Read the marking scheme of business risk, which is the latest paper of business risk available, published. Even business risk has come after December 2018, but the paper is not published. So the most updated published paper of business risk is December 2018. So you will look at the answers of December 18 paper. And I hope you know that in the answers of the paper, you have the marking scheme. I'll be showing you that in my webinar. Don't be worried about it. Read the marking scheme of business risk from the December 2018 answers so that you know uh, each business risk is worth how many marks. Each business risk is worth how many marks. Now, see, you read the article, you have the knowledge, you made the notes. You read the criticism, you know the do's and don'ts. You read the marking scheme, you know how many business risks to write an exam paper. Now, are you ideally prepared to start practice? Start practicing the past papers. Which past papers? Number one, December 2017, question number one. Then December 2018, question number two, because these are the most recent one. You don't have any further business risk question after this. It's not published. It came in the exam paper, but it's not published. And if you want to do some very old papers and you have access to old papers, you can do the December 14 question number one, but that's quite an old paper. So three papers, but ideally I would recommend that even if you do the first two papers, which is part of the webinar today, that's excellent. So is that clear? Yes. See, the examiner report is for September, Rabia. And the paper I'm recommending is December because ACCA published hybrid papers, September, December 2017. So when you go on the ACCA website, the paper you will find is September, December 2017. But actually, the question on business risk came in September. So examiner report is for September. And the paper you will be practicing is a hybrid paper, September, December 2017. That's a hybrid paper, right? Is that clear? But if you look at the December 17 examiner report, you will not find a criticism of the examiner because actually it came in the September 17, right? So I'm not doing a mistake here, right? I'm writing the right months. September 17 is the examiner report and December 17 is the question number one, right? So are you all clear? How would you prepare for business risk? Number one, read. Number two, make notes. Number three, read. Number fourth, again, read. And number five, practice. Is that approach clear? Yes, hybrid papers, Usman, means two papers are published together. So ACCA conducts 4 exam sittings in a year, right? But they publish only 2 papers on the website. So they just merge 2 papers together. Okay, so I'll be doing the same approach with you in the webinar today in a summarized manner because I have limited time. But that is an approach you should be using if you're preparing yourself for a business risk. So let's start the journey. Let's first understand what is a business risk. What is a business risk? What is the source I should use for understanding what is a business risk? Quick answers. What is a business risk? Which source? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where should I go to understand what's the business risk? One, definitely, I should read the exam technique article to understand what is a business risk. Now, what I have done is that I've made a summary of the article on my presentation. And on my presentation for day 2, I have made a summary. Now, you need to watch my previous webinars. I've just recommended that you should watch my previous webinar, March 21, for audit risk and ROM. But even if you want to watch my business risk webinar, where I have spent some time on business risk, that it was in December 20, and it's also on my YouTube channel. So the hyperlinks of both the webinars are given. These 2 webinars, plus the webinar you're taking right now, the June 21. I think this is an excellent preparation for all of you for the exams coming up. Is that noted well by all of you? Right, so this is the way you are going with. Moving on. The articles. There are some articles which you should read. These articles are provided to you in the resource window. I hope you have seen these resources. These articles are there. The most important article is this one, the exam technique article, which is recommendable. But the other two articles you should also be reading because they are important articles in terms of your understanding of what basically planning and risk assessment means. So please ensure that you read all the three articles which are coming in the left column and are made available to all of you. You should read the examiner reports, September 17 and December 18, to know the do's and don'ts. I will be practicing the December 17 paper today in my live class, and I will be using a blank workspace because this question is not available on the practice platform. So I will also guide you what is a blank workspace and how you use the blank workspace. And I'll be doing the September 18 question number 1, which is for analytical procedures. So this question is particularly for analytical procedure, not for business risk. I need to guide you how you use the analytical procedures, and I'll be using the September 18 question number 1 on the practice platform. And as your home assignments, you should complete the questions which I will discuss today in the session, right? So once I do the questions, you will complete them at home and you will watch my previous webinars. Is that clear to all of you? The 4 columns coming in front of your screen. Can you just confirm that? Okay, that's great. Thanks for the quick responses. Okay, now moving on. Business risk. What is a business risk? I just made a summary from the article. You need to read the article, right? But just to save time, I'm going through a summary. A business risk in the Examiner article is a risk resulting from a significant condition, event, or a circumstance, or an action, or an inaction that could adversely affect the entity's ability to achieve its objective. So a it it is a risk. Sorry, it is a risk which could adversely affect the entity ability to achieve its objectives and execute its strategies, or from inappropriate objectives and strategies. Now you need to understand that a business risk results from so many things. A business risk can result from a condition. A business risk can result from an event. A business risk can result from a circumstances. A business risk can result from an action of the company. A business risk can also result from an inaction of a company. Sometimes you take an action, but your action is wrong. It also results in a business risk. And sometimes you don't take an action on a timely basis, inaction. So inaction results into a business risk that could adversely affect the ability to achieve the objectives. Objectives of a business. What are objectives of the business? Most of you will say profit, but profit is not the only objective, right? Profit is not the only objective which can be affected. Your reputation. Your reputation is also the objective. So what if something affects your reputation? What if something affects the market share? If something affects your market share is also a business risk because market share is also your objective. Your sales, your revenue. Something affects your revenue goes down. So if your product becomes obsolete, that is also a business risk because an obsolete product will result in a declining revenue. So revenue is also your objective. Market share is also your objective. Reputation is also your objective. Stakeholder satisfaction. What if the stakeholders are not satisfied with you? Is that an objective of a business? Stakeholder satisfaction. Do you agree with me? So if anything dissatisfies, if anything dissatisfies your stakeholder, is that also a business risk? Right? So can there be numerous business objectives or can there just be one business objective? What you say about it? Can there be numerous or can there be one? Waiting for your answers. Numerous. Very good, very good. So anything which can affect your business objectives is a business risk. It can be an event, it can be a condition, it can be an action, it can be an inaction. Even your right, even your wrong strategies can result into something adversely affecting your objective. So let's make a summary on my Word file. What is the business risk? Now, in terms of what is a business risk, the first thing, a business risk is something, it is something which adversely affects the business objectives. Something which adversely affects the business objective, and that something should be in the case study you are reading in the exam paper. Am I right? For us, what is the something? For us, something is the case study. I hope you agree with me. So something that would adversely affect the business objective, and that something should be in the case study for a student. Now, what are examples of those somethings? Some things can be conditions, something can be events, something can be circumstances, something can be something can be actions, the wrong actions, and something can be inactions, means no action taken by the business and no action results in your profitability going affected. No action taken. For example, a competitor launched a new product and you didn't launch it. That's an inaction, right? But the competitor launched a product and you also launched a product, but your product was very, very bad. That's the wrong action. So sometimes an action even results in a business objective getting affected because the action was wrong. And sometimes you don't take an action, no action taken, or not taken timely. Not taken timely is an example of inaction. So, and even a wrong strategy. Sometimes the business make a wrong strategy for future, and that also affects your business objective. Do you believe setting a right strategy is very important? And if you're setting a wrong strategy, will that result in adverse effect on business objectives? You agree with me or not? Do you believe a wrong strategy is have a very adverse impact? So, what are examples? Do you believe uh, the wrong decisions affects your business objectives? Do you believe the political environment affects the business objectives? Do you believe changes in laws and regulations affects the business objectives? Laws and regulations, the legal environment. Do you believe the changes in the social environment, the customers affects your right? The strikes by the trade union, can that affect your business objectives? Can that affect your production? Right? As simple as that. Exactly. Pestle. Can pestle affect the business objectives? Pestle affects the business objectives. In the current scenario we're living in, the COVID-19. Do you believe COVID-19 is a big pressure on the business objective these days? And for some business, COVID-19 is an opportunity, right? And for some business, COVID-19 is a threat, and it is even putting pressures on business liquidations. It's putting pressure on business shutting down globally. And for some business, it is an opportunity. So there can be lots of things which can put pressure on business objectives. Even Let's make a list of business objectives. Yes, agree with your examples. Customers dissatisfaction, obsolete product, obsolete product, no research and development, no research and development, no research and development. Liquidity problems can affect business objectives. Liquidity issues can affect your business objectives of not getting enough amount of cash, liquidity, and the list goes on, right? The list goes on, right? Business objectives. Business objectives is not just profitability. Business objective also includes market share. Business objective also includes reputation. Business objective, okay, let me take this on the next page. Business objectives includes reputation. Business objectives includes your uh, growth, sales growth, uh, stakeholder satisfaction, stakeholders satisfaction, many of them, your competitive advantage over the competitor, etc. Right? Your share prices, exactly, your share prices, market share, your share prices, and the list goes on, right? And please also remember, the business risk can be from an internal event and can be from an external event. The business risk can be because of a trade union strike, which is an internal event. The business risk can be because of a high employee turnover. High employee turnover is an internal event. And a business risk can be because of COVID-19, which is an external event. So business risk can arise from events internally and events externally to business. Are you clear on that, everyone? So the business risk can arise from events within the business and events outside the business. External, right? Within the business, high staff turnover, high staff turnover, strike, strike by the trade union, uh, any weaknesses in the internal control system is a business risk. Outside the business, COVID-19, pestle, pestle, etc. So business risk can arise from events within and outside. I hope you agree. Quick answers from your side. Agree, disagree. Okay, so have you developed a mindset in the last 10 minutes about what is a business risk? Are you clear with the mindset? And this is just a summary, right? I spoke of from the article, which I recommended you to read. Okay, now once you know an understanding of business risk, what next we need to do? Okay, make your notes, which I have made for you. Step number 2 gone. Read examiner criticism on business risk. What are do's and don'ts of business risk? What a student should do when writing a business risk? Let's see the examiner do's and don'ts. What are do's and don'ts of business risk? Do's and don'ts of business risk. Is that important? Meeting the examiner expectation? Meeting the examiner expectation, is that important? Yes, very, very important, right? Let's see how we can meet the examiner expectations. Let's see the do's and don'ts. Back to my presentation for the do's and don'ts. Okay, the next bullet. For the purpose of exam, these risks can usually be thought in terms of conditions that may prevent a business from meeting its objective and might include risk. Just 1 minute. Might include risk. Might include risk to achieving the future profits or cash flows or to a business survive. So for an examination point of view, anything that prevent a business from meeting its objective. Will you highlight that in exam paper? Anything that prevent a business from meeting its objective, number one, and that might include risk to achieving the future profits. So is business risk only in the present, or business risk can also be in the future? So are we just thinking about the business risk in present in the case study, or are we also thinking about something which can impact your future profits? So examiner is saying you should also identify risk which could impact the future profits of the business or the cash flows of the business, and even the going concern of the business survival. So you're not just looking at the risk in present, you're also looking at the risk in future in the case study, which can impact your future profits and which can impact your future cash flows. Is that clear to everyone? Right. And going concern, the business survival is also a business risk, right? I think that's a very, very important business risk. COVID-19 is a business risk, right? And COVID-19 is threatening the business survival globally. How many businesses are facing a survival war because of the COVID-19? Right? So a business risk could be in present, and a business risk can also be the one which impacts your future, right? Look at COVID-19. COVID-19 is a present risk now, but is it impacting the future of the businesses? Is it impacting the future revenues of the businesses? Is it impacting the future profits of the businesses? Do you agree with it? So I hope you are clear on the bullet number 2, everyone. So anything in the exam paper that is impacting the objectives of the business, including the present objectives or the future objectives, you will consider it as a business risk. Number next, this is a simplified explanation, but will help you describe the implications of most risk you come across in exam papers. Examiner is saying most of the time, the risk you face in exam paper will be impacting on the business objectives, will be impacting on the business cash flows, will be impacting on the business survivals, will be impacting on the business profits. So examiner is saying most of the time, these are common implications. So these implications are the most common one in the exam paper. So what are most common implications in the exam paper you come across? Is the examiner giving us a ray of hope here? Examiner is saying the most common implications you come across in a AAA paper, if I can just write it in the knowledge part, most, sorry, just give me space here. Most common implications in an exam paper. Examiner is saying the most common implications is the implications on your business objectives. The most common implications is on your profits, on your cash flows, and on your business survival. So these are most common uh, implications you will find again and again exam paper when you do the past papers. Business survival, right? So these are most common. Moving back, there will be some risk whose explanation is more involved, and you can find examples of these in the past exams. So examiner is saying if you do the past papers, you will be very well prepared of getting ideas of business risk. So if you solve something like 2 to 3 past papers on business risk, you will be really, really well prepared for business risk, because there is so much repetition in business risk in past papers that you will find a lot of similarities in business risk. So if you make a habit of doing the December 17 paper, the December 18 paper, and even if you get hold of a December 14 paper, or I can share the December 14 paper on the WhatsApp group. You can do that old paper, 3 papers, and you will be very, very good on business risk. So is that clear? The business risk understanding, everyone? Can we move on to the examiner criticism? Business risk. In journal, now listen to me very carefully, right? Now this is what you need to do when you're writing the answer. In journal, you are looking for risk in the information that the examiner has presented to you within the scenario. So you are looking for risk in the information which the examiner has given to you, not outside the information. I don't have an idea, but why there are so many students who try to make their own story. Examiner is saying you are looking for risk in the information that the examiner has presented to you within the scenario. You will be asked to evaluate those risks. At this level, you will not be credited for defining a business risk. You will not be credited for defining the business risk. Look at this. So if you give a definition of a business risk, will you get marks? Examiner is saying you will not be credited for defining a business risk. You will not be credited for defining a business risk, nor will you receive a credit for describing what a client should do to mitigate the business risk. Should we write the mitigation of the risk? Is the examiner saying we should write the mitigation of the risk, or we should not write the mitigation of the risk? What is the examiner telling us? We should write a mitigation or we should not? Will we get marks for writing the mitigation? Will we get marks for writing the definition of the business risk? So are we finding the first don'ts? Everyone, the don'ts. Number one, the first one, identify risk from within the case, not outside the case. That's important. Number two, don't write mitigations. Don't write mitigations. No marks for this, wasting your time. And then also, don't just write the mitigation, and no need to write definition of business risk. There is no marks for writing the definition of business risk. So please refrain from that, right? So no recommendations. You just identify the risk and you explain why it is a risk, right? So your purpose is to identify the risk and then explain why it is a risk. And when you're explaining why it is a risk, you should focus on the implication of the risk on the business objective. Implication of the risk on the business objective, and that's a worthy answer. That's a worthy answer to be, which a good student should write. Just read this very carefully, everyone. Let me put that in red and let me put that in yellow. Identify the risk, explain why it is a risk, and when you're explaining why it is a risk, focus on the implication of the risk on the business objective, right? And I'll be writing an answer for you shortly, so you will know exactly how you formulate an answer. Okay, back to the presentation. Next, you need to consider how to frame the information which is provided as a business risk. As a journal rule, marks for business risk will be awarded as per the following. For identifying only without a meaningful explanation, you will only get half a mark. So if a student just identify a risk without a meaningful explanation, how many marks will you get? Half, right? For a briefly explained business risk, 1 mark will be awarded. So how many marks will you be awarded if you briefly explained a risk? Just 1. But full marks, 2, will only be awarded if there is a well explained business risk. Now, what are you aiming at? Are you aiming at half a mark? Are you aiming at 1 a mark, or are you aiming at two a mark? Two marks per risk? What's your aim? So if you just identify a risk without a meaningful explanation, how many marks will you get? Everyone? No, meaning without a meaningful explanation, you just identify a risk, half. If you briefly explain the risk, how many marks will you get? 1. And if you fully explain the risk, well explained business risk. Now, what are we aiming at? Definitely, we are aiming at a well explained business risk. Let's see what's the definition of a well explained business risk. Examiner is saying a well explained business risk is worth 2 marks. So are we aiming at this? Is that what we are aiming as a student? Well explained business risk. Now, what's the definition of a well explained business risk? First of all, you identify the risk from the case. Then you explain why it is a risk. You also speak of its implication on business objective. You also speaks of its business implication on business objectives. And your answer should be sync to case study. If your answer is sync to case study, then that's a wonderful 2 mark situation. And I'll be demonstrating shortly by writing the answer for you, just to show you what is a 2 marks worthy statement. And I did mention yesterday that if you in a AAA paper, you should fully develop your point. And a fully developed point is like 3 to 4 sentences long. 3 to 4 sentences long is a fully developed point. Anything less than that is not a fully developed point. So 3 to 4 sentences long, you are in a safe zone that you're writing a good answer. Is that clear? I will be demonstrating how you identify, how you explain, how you put the implication, and how you sync to the case, right? So sync number 1, implication 2, why 3, and identify 4. Will you remember this rule of thumb, everyone? Should I highlight this for you? Number 1, identify. Number 2, why. Number 3, implication. And number 4, it should be sync. Then you can aim for 4 marks. Can you make a mnemonic for that? The mnemonic means it could be uh, identify plus explain why. It could be implications. It could be sync. So it's IWIS is equal to 2 marks. Now it's quite a difficult mnemonic, but that's how you need to produce 2 marks. IWIS, identify, why, implication, sync. Will you remember that, everyone? And I'll demonstrate that, right? I'll demonstrate that. Don't be worried about it. If I have given you a mnemonic, I'll be demonstrating that. So nothing to worry about it. So that's how you go down with the business risk for 2 marks, right? Let's start the drilling shortly. Let's see if you have any further criticism of the examiner. Okay, moving on. Business risk. Marks Marks will not be awarded for points that are purely speculative, that is not based on the information provided in the case study, nor will marks be awarded for business risks that do not impact the audit. So you will not be getting any marks on anything which is speculative, on anything which is speculative. And you will not be getting any marks if you're writing a business risk which is not in the question scenario. Suppose you're writing anything rote learned and you're writing a business risk which you must have read in the past paper, but that's not connected with the case study, that's not in the case study, it's useless. And you will not be awarded marks of business risk that do not impact the audit. Now, because you are doing a business risk from an auditor point of view, you need to understand that you need to identify those business risks in the exam paper which are potential to the auditor, which are important to the auditor. You cannot just write those business risks which are very journal, but you need to focus on those business risks which you believe is really important. In a question, you are a manager, right? So when you are a manager, will you focus on important business risk or just like insignificant business risk? Suppose there are 10 business risks in the paper and you need to write 4. That's where the examiner is asking for the one which impacts the audit. So as a manager, you need to prioritize the business risk, you need to give the priority to the business risk, you need to identify the more important business risk. Speculative means generic, something not in the case study, but you just writing a business risk which is not in the case, and you're just taking an hypothetical assumption, right? So speculative means an hypothetical assumption used by a student. But you need to find the risk from the case study, you need to prioritize them, and you need to write the more important one in your answer. So that's another important criticism of the examiner, right, which you should focus on. The next, I'll be illustrating that, right? Don't be worried about it. So let me start the exercise and I'll be more clear on speculations. The last criticism of the examiner is that avoid speculative risk, and then the examiner wants risk to be prioritized. It means examiner wants to write the more important risk, because you're a manager in the paper, right? So you need to write the more important risk in the answer. Let me demonstrate that, right? Okay, so are you all prepared for the start of the December 17 paper to demonstrate what I just taught you in the last 30 minutes? I will be teaching you the speculative risk. I will be teaching you how to prioritize. I will be teaching you how you write a good answer. I will be teaching you the do's and don'ts through the demonstration, right? Now, the last thing remaining is the marking scheme. See here, we just got here. For the marking scheme, what we have to read? We have to read the December 18 answer. Now, if you look at the December 18 answer published, there is a marking scheme given, and that's important. If I can show you the December 18 answer. Can you see the December 18 answer in front of your screen, everyone? This is the December 18 answer, page number 11. On the page number 11 of the December 18 answers, there is a marking scheme for business risk, which is the most recent marking scheme, which you should use for exam papers. Now let's see what is the marking scheme. I'm just copying it from here, Control C, and I'm taking this marking scheme on my Word file for illustration before I start solving the past paper. So the marking scheme which you should be using is the one given in page 11 of the December 18 answer, December 18 answers, right? And this is the marking scheme I got from page 11 of the December 18 answers, which I would like with you to go through. Let me make this clear and let me get to the answer for this. Okay, now this is the marking scheme which you should be using. Let me take it on the fresh page, and once forever, let's complete it. Okay, examiner is saying up to 2 marks for each. Obviously, there is a mistake by examiner in the typing, so just make it correction. Instead of audit risk, right over here, the business risk. The question was business risk. Mistakenly, the examiner wrote audit risk. So up to 2 marks for each business risk identified and explained. That's what we got even from the presentation. Well explained business risk is worth 2 marks. So up to 2 marks, right? You will get for each business risk you well explained. Marks may be awarded for other relevant business risk not included in the marking guide. So a lot of time when you see the marking guide of the examiner, there are so many business risks given in the marking guide of the examiner. Can you see these business risks given in the marking guide of the examiner in the bullets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? But if you find a business risk which is not in the marking guide of the examiner is saying you will still get marks if that is a relevant business risk in the case study. So if you want to reconcile your answer with the examiner points, not the answer. A lot of times the student can reconcile their answer with the examiner answer. That's wrong. You should reconcile your answer with the examiner marking scheme and see how many points the examiner wrote over here matches with your point. So how many points the examiner wrote over here reconcile with your points. If even 50% of the examiner points matches with your points, then you are on the right track. But even then, the examiner is saying, even if you write a point which is not in my marking guide, you will still get marks, provided that's the right answer. So are you getting my point, everyone? So is the examiner saying marks may be awarded for other relevant business risks not included in the marking guide? Is that statement clear to everyone? So when you are writing an answer, how would you reconcile whether you have wrote a right answer or a wrong answer? From the answer or from the marking guide? Will you reconcile your answer from the marking guide or from the answer? Obviously from the marking guide. I'll be illustrating that. Next, can you see this word in addition? What does in addition means? Extra? In addition means something extra, right? Extra. In addition, allow half a mark for the relevant trend which forms part of the business risk evaluation. Example, a percentage increase in revenue and a profit before tax. In addition, allow half a mark for a relevant trend which form part of your answer, not isolated. You just find a trend and you get half a mark. No, which form part of the business risk evaluation. Look at this sentence. So if you find that the revenue has increased by 20% and you made use of that when you're writing your business risk, or you found that the revenue has gone down by 20% and you connected that with an obsolete product, that because the business is selling an obsolete product and that is the reason the revenue has gone down by 20% over the last year, have you made use of that percentage in your answer? So if you made use of a percentage in your answer, will the examiner gives you an extra half a mark for that? Is that what the examiner is telling you? So can there be a business risk which is worth 2.5 marks? So can there be a business risk for 2 marks? And can there be a business risk for 2.5 marks? Do you agree with me? No, there is no materiality in the business risk, right? So if you find any trends, half a examiner is giving you examples, Sanjay, and still you're making a mistake. See this example given by examiner. Example, a percentage increase in revenue and a percentage increase in profit. I hope you differentiate between a trend and a materiality. Materiality is used for an audit risk and a risk of material misstatement. Is that clear? So can there be a business risk for 2 marks and can there be a business risk for 2.5 marks? So if you find a trend and that trend forms part of your business risk evaluation, you will get 2.5 marks. But if you find a trend, will you get marks half? No, unless and until it forms part of a business risk evaluation. No, there is no caps for additional marks, right? Sukaina, there is no cap for additional marks. So you can have like three risks for 2.5 marks. You can have 4 risks for 2.5 marks. There is no cap. No cap. Yes, you get half a mark for a trend, but not just a trend till the time the trend is used as part of your answer. I'll be demonstrating that, right? I'll be demonstrating that. So is everyone clear with the marking schemes? And the last thing before I start my exercise, please, this is a very, very important student note. Take it carefully because I don't want this to be missed up by any student. This is a very important student note that when you write an answer, when you write your own business risk answer at home or any other answer for any topic at home, reconcile your answer, reconcile your points in the answer with the points in the examiner marking guide to see how many points you got right. If you got 50% or more points right, you are on right track for success. If you reconcile your answer with examiner answer, you will only you will only get stress. You will only get you will only get stress, nothing else, because examiner answers examiner answers are tutorial guidance, and examiner writes a lot more to guide students about all possibilities in the exam paper, about all possibilities in exam paper, and it's not an exam standard answer to write in 3 hours. How many times examiner has made that clear over so many webinars and so many sessions, and in his examiner comments and in the examiner answers, that this is a tutorial guidance, this is a tutorial guidance, but still students don't understand. So if you're writing an answer at home or any other answers at home for any topic, you just reconcile it with the examiner marking guide, not the examiner answer. Just read the student note yourself carefully and tell me, are you comfortable with it? So I hope you know the difference between examiner marking guide and you know the difference between examiner answer. They're two different things. Do you know the difference between examiner marking guide and examiner answers? Is everyone clear on that? Right? I've also guided about this in my previous webinar, March 21, that when you compare your answer with the examiner answer, the only thing you get out of it is stress and demotivation, because you are unaware of the fact that examiner tells you this is a tutorial guidance and examiner writes everything. Suppose there is an 8 marks question on business risk. How many business risks will you write for 8 marks? Give me quick answers. Just go with an average of 2. Just go with an average of 2, 8 marks. How many business risks will you write? 4. But in an 8 marks business risk answer, examiner will write 10 business risk. And you will say, no, sir, you told me to write 4 business risk. Examiner wrote 10 business risks. No, examiner answer is a tutorial guidance. He will write more than that because he want to show you all possibilities. So if you see the examiner answer of business risk for 8 marks, you will find examiner writing 8 to 9 business risk. Why? Because he want to guide you about every possibility. But how many will you be writing? Just 4. So are you getting impressed with the examiner answer? No, you're taking stress from the examiner answer because you don't know these are tutorial guidance. If you know these are tutorial guidance, you will not take stress. Is everyone clear? So there is one thing which is known as the marking guide. Can you see the marking guide in front of your screen? This is marking guide, right? Which gives you the bullets. But can you see the examiner answer here? These are examiner answers in paragraphs. These are examiner answers. So you need to reconcile your point with examiner answer. Try to understand that if my point and examiner point reconciles, that's good. If your point reconcile with examiner point, that's good, because explanation of the point will never reconcile, as everyone has a different way of explaining. Is that right? Are you comfortable with the bullet number 4th I wrote? If your point reconcile with the examiner point, That's good, because explanation of the point will never reconcile, as everyone has a different way of explaining. There are three students sitting in a class and they're writing the same business risk. They will have the same business risk, but will they have the same explanation? Tell me. They will have the same business risk, but they will not have the same explanation. But will all of them get marks? Definitely. So is everyone clear with the student note? Can we move towards the start of the paper now? Okay, now what we should do is that we should take a break, but in the break you have to do something, right? You have a December 17 paper, which is right in front of your screen here. And this December 17 paper is not available on the practice platform. So I will do it on the blank workspace. I didn't guided you about the blank workspace yesterday, and I will be guiding you about the blank workspace today. What is the benefit of a blank workspace? Now, if you are attempting a question which is not on the practice platform, how many questions you have on the practice platform? Anyone remembers that yesterday? No, not four. There was one specimen even. Four plus one, five. Yes, five. So if you're doing an old paper like December 17, do you have December 17 paper on the practice platform? No. So you will just download this paper from the ACCA resources and you will perform the answer on the blank workspace so that you improve your typing speed. So I will be guiding you about how you do an old question from a revision kit or from the old papers, and how you make use of these old questions on a practice platform using a blank workspace. So in between the break for 15 minutes, what will you do? You will just read through this case study, question number 1, and there is a requirement: evaluate the business risk for 10 marks. I hope you all can see that. There is a requirement here, evaluate the business risk right here. Evaluate the business risk for 10 marks. So ideally, how many risks are we identifying for 10 marks? Taking an average of 2, uh, right? 5. And if anyone has missed the guidance on CBE practice platform, you need to watch the day 1, right? If anyone has missed the guidance on the practice platform, you need to watch the day 1, right? Because I cannot give the guidance again, right? So 5 risks needs to be evaluated, and that's what we will do right after the break. I would prefer that during the break, if you can read the case study and you can underline the 5 business risks. So that's 1 page, and that's the second page. That's not big enough. So 2 pages of reading. I hope you can do that reading in the 15 minutes of the break time, and you can at least find 5 business risks when you're reading the case study. Will you do that? Should I expect an honesty from you in the 15 minutes break? Will you be reading this? Okay, so I'll be writing like 2 to 3 business risks with you, and the rest you will be writing. I need to give you an idea about what is the definition of a good 2 marks business risk. So I'm taking a break. You will read this question within the break, and I hope you have a handout. You can download that from the handout section and you can write it, right? Fine. So take a break now, and after the break, I'll demonstrate an answer of this question using the practice platform and the blank workspace on the practice platform. And if anyone missed the CBE session, please do watch my day 1 yesterday. And if by the end of the time today, we are unable to perform the analytical procedures, right, using the spreadsheet, then I'll do the analytical procedures using the spreadsheet on the day 3, at the start of the day 3. Is that clear? So if we miss anything from the agenda, don't be worried about it, because I can take that to the next day. So when we start the day 3 tomorrow, I will do the analytical procedures using the spreadsheet. But if I find time today, I will do it today, right? So we are taking a 15 minutes break now, and we'll resume back at 22 22:10 Pakistan Standard Time. So that's 10:10 Pakistan Standard Time. So 22:10 p.m. will resume. I'm sending this message to all of you. So we're taking a 15 minutes break. Have you got this message? Okay, it's psychologically 10 o'clock, right? Sorry. So we'll take a break till 10:15 then, right? So take a break till 10:15. Okay, the break is till 10:15 p.m. Sorry for that. So the break is till 10:15. We'll resume back at 10:15. Is that clear? Ms. Pa, I'll be showing you the blank workspace. It's on the same place where I showed you the practice platform yesterday, just to give you a reconciliation. I hope you know this space yesterday. Have you used this? Are you familiar with this page coming in front of your screen, everyone? Right? And you click on audit and assurance. You click on audit and assurance. And can you see a blank workspace coming under audit and assurance? Right? And you click on this blank workspace and you just press the button assign the blank workspace. And when you say assign the blank workspace, it will be assigned on the left side. See, this workspace have been assigned on the left hand side, and you say resume. So you come to the blank workspace. Now this is the blank workspace. Now in the blank workspace, do you have the word processor? In the blank workspace, can you see everything is blank, everything is dummy? Can you see the word processor option? So you will write the option, you will write your answer here, right, in this option. Is that clear, Fatima? So if you watched the day one yesterday, on the same space, you have a blank workspace option. You click on the blank workspace option and you come here. This is a dummy workspace, which you can make use of when you're writing the answer. So this will increase your typing speed on the word processor. Is that clear? So please ensure that you have logged into your My ACCA account during the break. And once I come back after the break, you must have logged into your My ACCA and you've come to the blank workspace and you have read the December 17 paper, which is right in front of your screen. So the break time is till 10:16 now because 1 minute has been put extra. So 10:16 p.m. I'll resume back. Is that clear to everyone? And will you read the paper during the break, everyone? Because we have less time after the break to solve it. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And how was the session so far? A quick feedback of the first part of the session today. Okay, thank you very much for that appreciation. So take a break now and I'll resume back at 10:16. Thank you. I'm muting myself, right? Okay, welcome back, everyone. I hope all of you can hear me and you are back from the break. Just to confirm that. Okay, are you all back from the break and can you all hear me? Okay, hello everyone. Can all of you hear me? And are you all back from the break? Can you just confirm that through the chat box with yes and no? Okay, thank you very much for that confirming. Okay, let's start on with the proceedings now, and we are into the December 17 question number one, which is a question not available on the practice platform. So we are doing it out of the practice platform, but a wonderful advantage which ACCA has given you, and I would like to share that with you, is that whenever you are attempting a question which is outside the practice platform, and what you can do is that you can go down to the blank workspace and attempt it. Now, this is just an example I was showing you prior to the break, that when you go to this, when you log into the practice platform, which I guided you yesterday, if anyone missed that out, you can watch the webinar yesterday. And when you come to your main window, which is in front of your screen now, and I hope you all can see this window, and you go to the advanced audit and assurance, you click on advanced audit and assurance, you find a blank workspace here. So if you are attempting any paper from a revision kit, or you're attempting any old paper which is not available on the practice platform, you will just click on the blank workspace and you will press the button assign button, and the workspace will be assigned to you on the left hand side. And on the left hand side, you can see the self assigned material. You click on this and you say resume or start, and you start the workspace, the blank workspace. Right now, this is a blank workspace in front of your screen. I guided you about this interface yesterday. I hope you're all familiar with this, right? Do you all know this workspace? Did we had an idea of this workspace yesterday, how to use the highlight option and the calculator and the scratch pad and everything? This is just a dummy workspace, right? Now, why are we using the dummy workspace? Because we want to use the, sorry, just give me 1 minute. I've opened the wrong workspace. I need to open the AAA workspace. Okay, I'm just clicking on the blank workspace, and I go to my left assigned options and I resume the blank workspace here. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Okay, so I come to the blank workspace right in front of your screen. And why are we using the blank workspace? We're using the blank workspace to write our answer in a word processor. And why are we writing the answer in a word processor? Because in the actual exam, we have to write the answer in a word processor, and that will increase the typing speed of the student, right? Is that clear to everyone? So do you believe this is a good feature by ACCA of giving you a blank workspace where you can write in the answers and you can increase your efficiency and speed ahead of your actual exams? Because on the practice platform, you can only practice 5 past papers, right? Is that clear to everyone? Okay, that's great, right? So please ensure that you use the blank workspace for word processor to improve your typing speeds and write more and more answers over here. Okay, and I hope you can see the screen in front of you, right? The word processor, everyone. Okay, now let's start the answer. Now we go back to the December 17 paper, and we know that the question number one, when you read the question number one, the question number says you need to prepare a briefing note. All of you know that, right, from the class yesterday, that in the question number one, we need to prepare a briefing note, and the briefing note needs to be structured on the word processor. So let's first structure the briefing note. How many requirements we need to do in a briefing note? A, B, C. Can you all see that? So 3 requirements to be fit in the briefing note. So you will make a briefing note on your word processor. So we go back to the word processor, you increase the font size, choose the heading number 2, that's quite appropriate, and you start to write the briefing note, and you say to from. You can bring the to from the copy paste version. See, you go back here, you have the to from subject, and you can just copy this to from subject from here. That's a good advantage of the computer based exams. You can just copy the to from subject from here. You press the Control C or you copy it. You go down to your workspace and you go here, you put a cursor here and you say paste. See, the to from subject has come over here. You can just increase the font size of the to from subject here. You increase the font size to heading number 2 and you can just say to from and you can just say the subject. See, you even not need to type it. But should we change the to and from, because we are writing back to the partner, so the to will become the from and the from will become the to. Do you agree with me? The to will become the from and the from will become the to, because you're responding back to the partner email, right? So the to will become the partner, so I will copy the name of the partner, Control C, and I will paste it in the to. And in the from, I just need to write the audit manager, and then I come back with introduction. Now no date is given. If date is given, you write the date. If date is not given, then you don't, right? uh, Kenny's Fatma, I think you missed the session yesterday, so please do take the recording, because I guided you about using of exhibits and in which order to use the exhibits. Currently, we're doing a question which is not available on the practice platform. It is a question outside the practice platform. So we're just writing the answer on a word processor, right? Control C, Control V, right? And I think many of you missed the session yesterday. So you're asking questions which were taught to you on the day 1. So please ensure that you watch the day 1 for all the questions, right? Okay, you write the introduction. Now all of you who attended the session yesterday, tell me, is it easy to copy to from subject, copy and paste it on the briefing note? Will that save your time to type to from subject? But you have to change the to from, right? The from will become the to will become the from, right? And you write the introduction. After the introduction, how many parts we have to do in the briefing note? A, B, and C. And then we need to write a conclusion. So is it easy to set up a briefing note quickly in the exam paper? Is that easier to set up a briefing note quickly in the exam paper, everyone? Right? So you can easily set up a briefing note very, very quickly, right? And then you write the introduction. Now let's see what we have in store in the introduction quickly. I hope you can write the introduction. I guided you about writing the introduction yesterday, everyone. So I'm just skipping the introduction because I need to solve the business risk, right? Okay, the first requirement is evaluate the business risk. So I just copy it from here, evaluate the business risk facing the group. I'll press Control C, copy. I'll go back to my word processor and I write over here a requirement, Control V, and I come with evaluate the business risk. I hope you can fill in the introduction yourself, right? Fill in the introduction yourself. Is that clear? Can you give me an answer to this? Okay, so should we start with the business risk answer? Okay, let's start with the business risk answer then, right? Evaluate the business risk. Let's start write an answer for business risk. How many business risks we need to write? Approximately 5. Let's start the journey. Let's go back to the case study. Okay, now see how you go about it. Be very watchful, be very careful. You are a manager in the audit department of Dove and Company, responsible for the audit of the Sunshine Hotel Group, which has a financial year end of 31st of December 2017. The group operates a chain of luxury hotels. Now look at this. What is the business model? They operate a chain of a luxury hotel. Stop over here. Yes, in the briefing note, you can write RE, you can even write the subject. That doesn't make any difference. I have guided that in my previous webinar, even that subject and RE is one of the same thing, right? Okay, what is the business model of this group? A chain of luxury hotels, right? Now, when you look at a chain of luxury hotels, do you agree that when you're operating a chain of luxury hotels that needs a lot of repair and maintenance, that needs a lot of refurbishment, keeping your hotels up to date, do you mean there is a lot of expenditure on refurbishments for these hotels because they are a chain of luxury hotels? So this is just a thought process. Examiner is saying it operates a chain of luxury hotel, but is the examiner developing a point, or is the examiner just touching upon a point? The group operates a chain of luxury hotel, or is the examiner developing and explaining what is the luxury hotel model here? Now, a lot of time when you're reading a case, you find that examiner is giving you a hint, but examiner is not explaining the point. So you need to hold that point. If you just indulge into the point of a luxury hotel and you start explaining luxury hotel and you just start talking about the business model of a luxury hotel and you say, okay, luxury hotel can have a lot of pressure on your expenses and a luxury hotel can have a lot of pressure on your profitability, that is where you come to a speculative point. Do you understand my point here? Because lots of students before the break were asking about a speculative risk. So a chain of a luxury hotel, examiner is just giving us an intro line here. Unless and until the examiner explains it, I should not write the point. I just hold this point, chain of luxury hotel. And it is planning to expand its operation in the next 3 years. Planning to expand operations. Do you believe if the business is planning to expand operations over the next 3 years, it will require a lot of capital expenditure? It requires a lot of loan from the bank to expand its operation over the next 3 years? Can it increase the gearing risk for the business? If they plan to expand, will that be a lot of capital expenditure for a business? But again, is the examiner developing this point, or is the examiner just touching upon this point, giving us an idea that the group is planning to expand over the next 3 years? I should not write this as a business risk unless and until the examiner develops the point later. What if the examiner develops a point of chain of luxury hotel later in the case study? Then that will become a very good risk. Or if the examiner develops a point of planning to expand its operation over the next 3 years later in the case study, that will become a very good point. But should I just hold these points to write them later if I get a good explanation from the examiner later in the case study? But if I write them early, they will become hypothetical. So just hold the points, chain of luxury hotels and planning to expand operations over the next 3 years, unless and until the examiner explain these points later in the case study. Now, what you need to understand here, there is one thing which you need to understand very carefully. When you're reading the case, right? When you're reading the case, be very particular. Look at this very carefully, right, everyone? When you're reading the case, there might be some sentences in the case. There might be some sentences in the case, just like the one I read with you. And there might be some flagged issues in the case. Find the difference. There might be some sentences in the case, and there might be some flagged issues in the case. Sentences like luxury chain of hotel, luxury chain of hotel. This is just like a sentence. Or planning to expand in the next 3 years, right? In next 3 years. These are just like sentences. Examiner likes a student to write a business risk or to write an audit risk or to write a risk of material misstatement from the flagged issues in the case. Now, what is a flagged issue? A flagged issue is the one which is explained in full by the examiner, in the case study. Okay, can all of you hear me now? Okay, that's great, right? So I'll just be reconfirming that multiple times. Really apologize for that internet disconnection, but I hope you're all back live. Uh, okay, where we left when there was an internet disconnectivity issue? Were we discussing sentences and the flagged issue, right? So, have you found the difference between a sentence and a flagged issue? That a sentence is like a luxury chain of hotel and planning to expand, but whereas a flagged issue is the one which the examiner explains fully, right? And which should be a priority. So, if I just be in a Russian exam paper, I might just pick up a luxury chain of hotel and planning to expand and will develop my point. I should just wait, right? I should wait for a flagged issue to develop my point. Is that clear to everyone? So if the luxury chain of hotel is developed later, then that's particularly fine. Is my voice clear to everyone? Just wait for 1 minute. Okay, I hope you're all can hear me, right? So let's see if any of these issues have been flagged by the examiner. Let's go back to the case study. Okay, now you go down the case study, and in the case study, you read under the email of the partner. And this is the background information of the hotel where we can find some good points. Okay, let's read the background information of the hotel. The group owns 20 hotels, all located in the popular beachside hotel resorts. The hotels operates on an all-inclusive basis where guests can consume unlimited food and drinks and take part in a variety of water sports, including scuba diving. Each hotel has at least 4 restaurants and a number of bars. The Sunshine Hotel, a brand, the Sunshine Hotel brand is a market leader with significant amount spent each year on marketing to support the brand. The hotels are luxurious and are maintained at a very high standard. Now, has the examiner flagged the issue? The hotels are luxurious and are maintained to a very high standard. Is that a very important point here? The hotels are luxurious and are maintained to a very high standard. Has the examiner fully developed the point now? Right? So I should take this point now, and I should now develop my point because the examiner is now telling me that the hotels are indeed luxurious and they're maintained to a very high standards, and you spend a lot of amount on marketing each year, right? So let's take that back to my workspace, right? I just should take it back to my workspace, and in my workspace, I should write this as my first business risk. The hotels are luxurious and are maintained to a very high standard. I just copy paste that line over here. I just increase the font size. I'll put the heading on the top, luxurious hotel, luxury hotels as my heading. And under the heading of the luxury hotel, I need to develop my 2 marks. The hotels are luxurious and maintained to a very high standard, which means a lot of expense is incurred each year on maintaining the hotels, maintaining the hotels to a standard, maintaining a hotel to a standard uh, at which the at which the Sunshine Hotel, at which the Sunshine Hotel can enjoy the market share, can enjoy the market leader position. So do they need to maintain the hotels to a standard to enjoy the market leader position they have currently? So the hotels are luxurious and maintained to a very high standard, right? Now that means uh, a lot of expenses is incurred each year. Can all of you hear me? Right. So a lot of expenses incurred each year on maintaining the hotel to a standard at which the Sunshine Hotel can enjoy the market leader position. This means this means that this means a lot of pressure. This means a lot of pressure on operating expenses. This means a lot of pressure on operating expenses for the hotel and a pressure on the profit margins and a pressure on the profit margins. Do you believe this will result in a lot of profit? This will result in a lot of pressure on the profit margins for the hotel and a lot of pressure on the operating expenses because they are following a business model which is luxurious, and anything which is luxurious demands a standard and a lot of expenses. So this means a lot of pressure on operating expenses for the hotel and a pressure on the profit margin. So is it adversely affecting the business objective? Is it adversely affecting the business objective, everyone? This means a lot of pressure on operating expenses for the hotel and a pressure on the profit margin. Now I put a fuller stop and I go back to the case study to find is there exactly a pressure on the profit margin. So I go back to my case study again and I go to my page number 2, and on the page number 2, okay, sorry, there is no information given up here. I come back to my page number 1, and in the page number 1 it says the group The group has continued growth with revenue for the year projected to be 125 million. Last year, the revenue was 110 million. The profit before tax is projected to be 10 million. Last year, the profit was 9 million. Can you see this line here? Last year, we had a profit of 9. This year, we had a profit of 10. If you can find the profit margin, you use the calculator, you use the calculator in the exam, and you find the profit margin. Okay, Yolanda is giving me the profit margin, 13.63%. This is for the last year, Yolanda. 13.63% is the profit margin for the last year, 2016. Can you give me the profit margin for both years, 2016 and for the current year? 8% for the current year. Okay, 8% is for the current year, the profit margin. Okay, and what's the profit margin for the last year? Yolanda, the last year profit margin is 13.63%. Do I confirm these figures? Can anyone confirm me? Okay, it's 8.2%, right, for the current year. And what is the last year? What is the last year profit margin? In 2016, sorry, in 2016 it's 7.2, and last year it was 8.8. So has the profit margin fallen? Has there been a fall in the profit margin? Sorry, this year 8, last year 8.2. Is that confirm answers? Right. So I'm just writing on the basis of your answers, right? So has there been a fall in the profit margin? Current year 8, thank you. Current year 8, last year 8.2. So let me develop my point here. I go back to my blank workspace. This means a lot of pressure on the operating expenses for the hotel and a pressure on the operating profit margin. The operating profit margin, the operating profit margin has already declined from 8.2% in the last year to 8% in the current year. Am I right? So does that shows the pressure? Because 8%, 8.2% is not a very attractive profit margin. I hope you all agree with me, right? 8.2% is not a very attractive profit margin. It's still a low profit margin. And that low profit margin has gone down further. So do you believe 8% profit margin is a good profit margin for any industry? So that shows there is a lot of pressure already, right? 8.2% was the last year. This year it's 8.8% only. So there is a gone down effect here. So have I developed my point, including the percentages? Will the examiner give me an extra half a mark for writing these percentages and linking that with the falling profit margins? Will I get extra half a mark, everyone? So will this point be worth 2.5 marks because I developed my point including the percentages? So When you are writing a point, first of all, the point should come from the case study. It was a luxurious hotel. A luxurious hotel means a lot of expenses needs to be incurred on a luxurious hotel to maintain the standard and to be in a market leader position. Now, every time the management incur expenses on refurbishment and the management incurs a repair and maintenance expenditure to keep the Sunshine Hotel as a good brand of hotel, the pressure will come on your expenses and the pressure will come on your profit margins. And the profit margin, which was very low, 8.2%, has already gone further low to 8% in the current year. Is everyone clear on this point and the development of the point? Can we take the next point, the point number 2, and see how we write it on the word processor, right? Next, go back to the case study again. Okay, the next point. Okay, the next point is about the risk of material misstatements. I'm just ignoring this point off, right? This is basically a point of ROM. So I'm just ignoring the ROM point. I'm coming to the next paragraph, notes from the meeting with the finance director. In the note from the meeting with the finance director, it tells us that the group has seen a continued growth, and the profit has increased to 125 million. Last year the revenue was 110 million. This year it's 125. The profit has increased slightly to 10. In 16 it was 9, though the profit margin has gone down. According to the latest management accounts, the group total assets are currently $350 million. This can help you in the risk of material misstatement when you're finding materiality. The Sunshine Hotel brand is not recognized as an asset in the financial statement because it's internally generated. That's the right accounting treatment. So because it's an internally generated brand, it's not recognized. Wonderful. The group has a cash of $20 million at today date. Most of this cash is held on a short-term deposit in number of different currencies. Now that's the risk of material misstatement, right? You have held the cash in different currencies, so you have a foreign exchange risk, which can also impact your profitability as well. But even it is a IS 21 risk, that how you use the exchange rates for conversion. So you can account for this risk in IS 21 as well. But even you have an exposure to foreign exchange risk, and an exposure to a foreign exchange risk is also a business risk, even because I hope the volatility in different currencies will impact upon your exchange gain and exchange losses. Do you agree with me? Do you believe a volatility in different currencies will impact your profitability? Most of this cash is held on a short-term deposit in a number of different currencies. Will that result in a exchange gain and exchange losses? Do you agree? Right. So can we just make a point over here that most of the cash is held in different currencies, right? Can we make a point from here? So I'll just take this point, copy, and I take it to my word processor, and I put my point over here, control V, sorry, control, I put my point over here, most of the cash, and I put a heading over here on top, increasing my heading size to heading number 2, cash balance, cash as a heading. And under the heading, I write my answer. Most of the cash is held on a short-term deposit in a number of different currencies. Expose the hotel group to foreign exchange volatilities, to foreign exchange volatility. It can later also become the audit risk, right? Because of the IS 21. And just a confirmation, my voice is getting through to all of you, right? Most of the cash is held on a short-term deposit in a number of different currencies. Expose the hotel group to a foreign exchange volatility, and any adverse changes in foreign exchange, any adverse changes in the foreign exchange volatility can have an adverse impact on the hotel profitability due to exchange losses, So is it a risk in future? Any adverse changes which can happen in future can have an adverse impact on the hotel profitability due to exchange rate changes or due to exchange rate losses. So is it a risk in future which the business should be worried about? So this is just a 2 marks risk, right? That the business is exposed to foreign exchange volatility because they have held their cash in different foreign currencies. This is just a 2 marks risk. And you come to the next one. I think the next one was the gearing risk. If you go back to the case study, The group gearing is 25% currently. So you agree group gearing is 25%? Can the group gearing increase in future because they're planning to invest in the next 3 years? So do you think the group gearing will rise in the future to come? Do you agree? So group gearing ratio is 25%. Let's take that back to my uh, word processor. And in the word processor, let me increase the font size to heading number 2. Group gearing is 25%. I put over here gearing. The group gearing is 25%, but this will increase. But this will increase in future as the hotel group plans to invest in new hotels over the next 3 years. In the new hotels in the next 3 years. Is that linked to the case study? Or have I found an hypothetical risk? Because it was written in the case that the group will plan to invest in new hotels in the next 3 years. So do you believe that the gearing level will go up? Right? So the group gearing ratio is 25%, but this will increase in future as the hotel plans to invest in new hotels in the next 3 years. I hope if you've read the case in the break, is the group planning to do further expansions with like a capital expenditure of 45 million? And are they planning to take some additional loans? If I can go back to the case study and read the paragraph next. See, it is written over here. Part of the group strategy is to expand in new countries, right? That's one. And in July 2017, the group purchased land in 3 locations with a cost of $75 million. There are currently no specific plans for the development of these locations due to political instability in the country. In addition to the farmland acquisition, the existing hotel complex was purchased from a competitor of 23 million. So do you think there is a lot of capital expenditure which has gone in? 75 million on the purchase of land, 23 millions on a purchase of a hotel complex from a competitor, and you spend a lot. And over here it says the group is planning to invest in alternative locations with a capital expenditure in the sites of the new locations of 45 million budgeted in 2018. So this will be funded from an undrawn borrowing facility. So are they foreseeing another $45 million capital expenditure in the future? So will that increase the gearing? $45 million of another expenditure coming up in 2018, right? The 2017 one has already been done. So you go back to the case study and you say, but this will increase in future as the hotel plans to invest in new hotels in the next 3 years. Particularly, the group plans to invest $48 million in 2018 on new locations, which will impact on the increased gearing levels, as this will be funded from the undrawn facility, as this will be funded from the undrawn facility from the bank. So you will be going to the bank, taking this $48 million from your undrawn facility. It will increase your gearing risk, funded from the undrawn facility from the bank. So increased gearing, right? The increased gearing will also result in increased finance cost in future, right? So group gearing ratio is 25%, but this will increase in future because the group is planning to expand. Particularly, the group plans to invest $48 million in 2018 into new locations. This can also increase the future finance cost for the business. And you close your point. The future finance cost for the business, and you get your 2 marks here. So are you getting the track of working on a blank workspace, everyone? Are you getting the way of writing on the blank workspace, increasing your typing speeds and writing your answer? So can you do formattings on the blank workspace? You can underline your points like control U and you underline your point, control U and you underline your point, control U and you underline your point, right? See, again, this is just a tutorial answer, right? You can develop a luxury hotel point in a different manner. right? You can develop the cash point in a different manner. You can develop a gating point in a different manner. This is change of perspective, right? This is exactly what I was guiding you before the break, Aisha and Bahawal, that if I write an answer and you write an answer, they will be different. But luxury hotel is a point which is to be developed. Cash is a point which is to be developed. Gating is a point which is to be developed. But how you develop it will be different. Am I correct here? So it's not necessarily that you develop the luxury hotel point the way I have developed, right? Or you develop the cash point the way I have developed it, or you develop the gearing point the way I have developed it. You can develop it in a different manner. But at least I hope you all agree that luxury hotel is a business risk, cash is a business risk, gearing is a business risk. I hope you all agree with me. Right? Just one last exercise, and we are exiting from this situation of business risk. Uh, if I go back to the case study and I just show you one thing here, look at this paragraph I was reading here. I want to read this paragraph again. Part of the group's strategy is to expand in new countries. That is not a bad strategy, right? You want to expand into new countries. But let's see, is there something wrong with this group strategy to expand in the new countries? In July 27, the group purchased land in 3 countries with a look with how much amount? $75 million. So they purchased land in 3 countries for $75 million. So that's quite a significant amount. One, there are currently no specific plans for the development of these locations due to a political instability in the country. In addition, the farland acquisition and an existing hotel complex was purchased for $23 million. So you invested $75 million in farland, but can you develop these lands into a hotel? Have you done a wrong investment? You have done an investment in a country where you have a political instability. Will that really affect your investment plans? Will that really affect your expansion plans? So do you agree? Is it a right strategy that you purchased lands in farland? Do you agree with this strategy of the business? No, right? So they have already purchased lands in farland with a cost of $75 million, but can they develop them? No. And do you know how long will the political instability last? Do you know how long will the political instability last? No. So can we develop this point? Uh, there are currently no plans for the development of these locations due to political instability in the country. Let's copy this point and take it to my Word file for another business risk here. $75 million, right, has been put into this country. I just copy this point, go back to my word processor, and in my word processor, I write my next risk. I increase the, sorry, just 1 minute. I just paste it over here. I just increase the font size here to the heading number 2. I put a plan here, investment in farland. So I just put here investment in farland, and I develop my point. There are currently no specific plans for the development of these locations due to political instability in the country. Seems like an inappropriate business strategy. Seems like inappropriate business strategy on behalf. Seems like a inappropriate business strategy as $75 million as $75 million has been uh, spent on purchase of 3 lands in the country, on purchase of 3 lands in the country, which are of no use so far, which are of no use currently, which are of no use currently, and the hotels could not be developed, could not be developed till the time the political instability is over. Till the time the political instability is over. So you cannot develop the hotels, right, till the time the political instability is over. So it seems like an inappropriate business strategy. Why have you invested in a country where there was a political instability? So should we question the strategy? So You have invested in a wrong country, right? That means you have not evaluated the country before. You have not evaluated the country for the political structure, and you have done a wrong investment in a country where there was a political instability. Is that clear to everyone? So do you believe investment in a far land is a wrong decision for the Sunshine Hotel, and the $75 million is a wrong investment? So will you criticize the business strategy? Will you criticize the business strategy of the hotel here? Right? So I hope you found a track and you can continue on this track back at home. I've already given you like 4 paragraphs and a structure of how you write a briefing note. And then you write the B answer, then you write the C answer, and you go down writing a conclusion. So are you familiar with the blank workspace? How can you use the blank workspace for improving your typing speed? So any question you are practicing at home which is not on the practice platform, or any question you are practicing at home which is from the revision kit, you can make use of the blank workspace to write in the answer. Is that clear to everyone? And please ensure that whatever business risk answer you are writing is from the case study, it's synced to the case study. And if you can make use of the percentages, do make use of the percentages, because if you are making use of the percentages, they can have a real good impact on your answer. So you should use the percentages as I have used in my first answer. That is very, very important. Yes, my answer is just a guidance answer, right? You can further develop my answer. You can further elaborate my answer. My purpose was to show you a guidance, Anthony, right? Now you can develop the answer in a better manner, because you need to understand in the constraint of a webinar, you just need to give the right direction to the student, and the student should then continue on the right direction and polish up. You can calculate these percentages, Fatma, in the real exam by using your calculator. I did guided that yesterday on the day one, that you can carry your own calculator in the exam hall. If you're giving a center-based exams, even if you're giving a remote invigilated exam, you can take your own calculator, right? And you can use your own calculator to find the answers and put them on your answer paper, on your word processor. Yes, totally agree with you, Bahawal. The answer to your question is yes. Okay, is that clear? Are you all comfortable with business risk? Will you continue with business risk, complete up the answer for December 17 paper? And will you do the December 18 paper as well? No, from one situation, you will write only one business risk, Kamil Yar Muhammad, right? So please try to wrap up the business risk yourself. I hope you got a productive learning of business risk from the session today, which was one of the objective of the session today. And I just need to move on towards the use of the spreadsheet now, right? Which is very, very important. And I need to guide you about how you use the spreadsheet in the AAA paper. Is there a real need of using the spreadsheet in the AAA paper, or the entire AAA paper can be solved on a word processor? Is that a big question for everyone? Okay, now whenever you write an answer right in the word processor and you close the window, see, I close the window and I reopen the window, see, the answer is still there. The answer will not get lost. So in the exam paper, when you're writing an answer on a word processor and you close the word processor and you reopen the word processor, the answer is still there. So the answer will not get lost, right? And if you want to leave the answer incomplete and you want to jump from the question number 1 to the next question, the question number 2, you can jump to the question number 2 and you can come back to the question number 1. Your answer will not be lost. Is that clear to everyone? Okay, now the next thing I want to discuss with you, which is very, very important today, the last thing, please give me an answer quickly. If I can complete this today, that's good. If I cannot complete this today, I'll do it tomorrow. Uh, is is use of spreadsheet important in the AAA paper? Is use of spreadsheet important in the AAA paper? Let's find an answer. Now, the answer to this question is very diplomatic, right? Uh, I think most of your AAA paper can be attempted on a word processor. Let me write that for you over here. Most of your AAA paper, or in some cases, the entire paper can be done on word processor, right? If you want to do calculations of materiality, if you want to do calculations of materiality or the trends like we did just now, or the trends as we did in December 17 paper just today, you can use the calculator. You can use your own calculator, or the calculator on the screen, with whichever you are comfortable. I guided you about this yesterday. You are comfortable, right? So most of your AAA paper, or in some cases the entire paper, can be done on the word processor. Let me make the spelling correction. Okay, word processor. And if you want to do the calculations of like materiality, or if you want to identify the trends as we found the trend in the December 17 paper just today, you can use your own calculators. No need to get to the spreadsheets for that, right? No need to get to the spreadsheets for that. Now, when will you use the spreadsheets? The only case in AAA paper where the only case in the AAA paper where you can make use of spreadsheet is when the question number one is on audit risk or on risk of material misstatement. When the question one is on the audit risk or a risk of material misstatement, which specifically ask for utilize the analytical procedures. And I've done this question in my previous March 21 webinar. Utilize the analytical procedures. You can see the marking scheme of this. You can see how to do this, but I just want to show you how will you do it on the spreadsheet. Now, I hope you must have seen some past papers where the examiner asked for, in an audit risk question and in the risk of material misstatement question, to utilize the analytical procedure. Have you seen a question like such in past papers for audit risk and risk of material misstatement, where the examiner specifically asked for utilizing the analytical procedure? So only case in the AAA paper where you can make use of the spreadsheet is when the question one on audit risk and the risk of material misstatement specifically asks for utilize the analytical procedures. Then only spreadsheet becomes advisable. Is that clear? So let me show you a question like such. I think one good example is the September 18 paper, question number one on the practice platform, where analytical procedures was asked for. On the practice platform, where analytical procedures were asked for. So let me give you a drill of that. Are you all clear? No, you should put the answer numbers, right, when you're using the word processor. Suppose when you're doing the word processor right over here, when I was doing the word processor with you, just give me 1 minute. When I was doing the word processor with you, when I was doing this word processor with you here, right, you can just put above the briefing note answer to question number one. Answer to question number one. So you should put the reference to question so that it's easier for the marker to mark it, right? You should do that, right? Okay, now let's go back and show you the September 18 paper. Okay, you go to the advanced audit and assurance, you go to the international papers, you go to the ACC official resources, you go to the past exam paper. Can you see the September 18 paper here? Can you all see the September 18 paper? So I'm just assigning the September 18 paper. Assign the September 18 paper. It will come on the left hand side of the screen, and I'll open the September 18 paper. Just let me find where the paper has gone, which I've assigned to myself. Just 1 minute, right? Okay. I open the September 18 paper, and you can see in front of your screen the September 18 paper has opened up. I go to the next screen, and the September 18 paper comes here, right? Can you all see that screen, September 18 paper? Now just be very watchful, right? I just might take 10 minutes over the time because we lost some 10 minutes due to the internet connectivity issue, right? So I hope you can take that down. Okay, now look at this question. In this question, when you open the partner email, you see in the partner email the question requirement. And the question requirement in the partner email is evaluate the audit risk. Evaluate the audit risk in the planning of the group audit. That's the first requirement. But in the requirement, the examiner says you should utilize the analytical procedures as part of the audit risk. Can you all see this requirement? And this has come multiple times in the past paper when in a question on audit risk and in a question on risk of material misstatement, you find that you should utilize the analytical procedures, right? So when a question specifically asks for you should utilize the analytical procedures, how many marks will you get? Please watch my March 21 webinar. How do you write an answer for analytical procedure? Please watch my March 21 webinar day 1. The only purpose here is to demonstrate the use of analytical procedures on a spreadsheet. Now, you know, analytical procedure means you perform the ratio analysis, and for every ratio, you get 1 mark. And you need to do the comparative of the ratio, and you need to do a commentary on the ratio. You can get all that guidance from the March 21 webinar. But how would you do analytical procedure in a computer-based exams versus how you do that in a pen and paper exam, which I guided you in my last webinar? So use the analytical procedures. Now, when you need to use the analytical procedure, can you see you have been given a balance sheet and an income statement in the exhibits? Can you see in the exhibits you have an SOFP and a P&L? Can you all see that? On the left panel, in the left panel, can you see the SOFP and P&L? Everyone? Okay, you click on the SOFP first. You click on the group financial statements, SOFP. You will see the SOFP coming in front of your screen now. Okay, can you see the SOFP open in front of your screen? Now, you cannot write anything in this SOFP. See, if I click a cursor on the Excel and I start to write anything here, it says locked cells cannot be modified. So I cannot write anything on the Excel file because this is an exhibit. So if I want to do the analysis of the number, how would I do it? I would do what? I will, can you see the bottom left, top left corner of the screen on the Excel file where I'm putting my cursor? Can you see my cursor moving up to the corner left, everyone? So I put my cursor here, click, everything gets selected. I say Control C, and I go to the spreadsheet response option. Can you see the response option spreadsheet? I go to the spreadsheet response option, and on the corner left, I press the cursor again and I say Control V. Can you see the spreadsheet have come, the SOFP has come in the spreadsheet, a new spreadsheet now? Can you all see that? Right? So I have copied the spreadsheet from the exhibit. Sorry, I've copied the SOFP from the exhibit to a spreadsheet where I can do the working. Now I need to find the ratios, right? So can you see the 2 years, 2005 and 2004 on your screen? If I can just increase the screen size a bit more so you can see it properly. See, now what I'll do, I'll write over here working, and in I need to do the working, I'll write over here working notes, and I need to do the workings for 2 years, 2005 and 2004. So I copy the 2005 and 2004 and I paste it over here under the working notes. So I need to develop my working notes for 2005 and 2000, sorry, not in this column, Control X and Control V. So I put my working notes here, and then I put 2005 and 2004. Now I need to work on a current ratio. Can you see the current assets given here? I can do the yellow color, yellow, current assets for the current year and current assets for the last year. right? And can you see the current liabilities here? The current liabilities for the current year and the current liabilities for the last year, right? Now, can I work on the current ratio? I will write over here W1. W1 means working number one. And under the working number one in the bracket, I'll write CR. Working one CR. So if the assessor is checking my paper, he knows that the working one is for the CR. So I'll put working one CR and I'll find the answer is equal to 1450 divided by 597. And I press enter and I find my answer for the current ratio, and I press the decimal spaces and I just choose the two decimal spaces. So the current ratio for the current year is 2.43. Then I go to the last year is equal to 1420 divided by 547, and I find the current ratio for the last year, and I then choose the decimal spaces, two decimal spaces, and I find the answer 2.60. So has the current ratio gone down over the last year in the working number one? So is that the result of the analytical procedure? Is that the result of the analytical procedure I found out, everyone? I hope you know how to use the formulas in the Excel. So have you found the formulas, everyone? So have I found my first ratio, 2.43 and 2.60? Okay, you can find the second ratio. Can you see the total equity given over here? If I can change the color, total equity. Can you see double 245, the current year total equity and the last year total equity? And can you see the non-current liabilities? The non-current liabilities is 650 in the current year and 620 in the last year. So can you do the working number two of the debt to equity ratio? Working two of the debt to equity ratio, debt and equity ratio, DE, debt and equity ratio. So you can find the answer for a debt and equity ratio and write the answer. So see how I'm formulating my working on the Excel. Now, when I go back to my word processor and I want to demonstrate how am I utilizing these analytical procedures, right? This is just the answers of the analytical procedure, which I found on the Excel. Now, when I go back to my word processor, what will I do? I'll open my briefing note, and in the briefing note, I'll write my answer. Again, I'll choose the heading number 2. I'll quickly write up my briefing note. I'll say to, from, subject, intro. And under the introduction, I'll say A. A is the audit risk. Sorry, A is the audit risk with analytical procedure. So I put the heading. A is the audit risk with the analytical procedure. So I just put the heading over here. And under that, I'll write results of analytical procedures. Results of analytical procedures. So do I need to show the results of analytical procedures again? No, because I've done them on the Excel. So what will I tell the examiner? I'll tell examiner that the results of the analytical procedure, see the spreadsheet. See the spreadsheet for working. So examiner will go to my spreadsheet and see the working for current ratio and the debt to equity ratio, right? Is that clear to everyone? So you put the result of analytical procedures and you tell examiners, see the spreadsheet for working, and see if now I put the heading over here, current ratio, and I'll do the commentary on the current ratio, right? I'll put the heading over here, current ratio, and I'll do the commentary on the current ratio without referring to the numbers. See, how would I do it? I put over here the current ratio. The current ratio has decreased from last year to the current year as shown in working one in the spreadsheet. So I'm not copying the numbers 2.60 and 2.43. I'm simply telling examiner that the current ratio has decreased from the last year to the current year as shown in the working one in the spreadsheet. So will my marker go to the spreadsheet and check it? Definitely, right? So the current ratio is decreased from the last year to current year as shown in the spreadsheet, full stop. There is a risk that despite a fall in current ratio, the assets, the current assets could be overstated. The current assets could be overstated. There is a risk that despite a fall in current ratio, the current assets could be overstated. Do you believe this is a generic risk? This is an inherent risk that the current assets could be overstated to make a better current ratio? Even though the current ratio is falling, can the management fabricate the current ratio? So is that an underlying risk which we can identify from the current ratio? There is a risk that despite a fall in the current ratio, the current assets could be overstated as the current ratio, as the current assets has already increased over the last year, by how much the current asset has increased over the last year. Go back to the Excel spreadsheet and see how much current assets has increased over the last year. How much was the current assets? The current assets was 1420 in the last year. In the current year, they're 1450. So how much current assets have increased is equal to 1450 minus 1420. You put them in the bracket open, bracket close. And how much have they increased over the last year? Divided by 1420. Divided by, just 1 minute, divided by 1420. And you find the answer. So how much have they increased in? I press the percentage button, two decimal places, 2.11%. So the current assets have increased by 2.11% over the last year. Does that indicate there is a risk of overstatement? Does that indicate that the current assets have increased by 2.11% indicates that there is a risk of overstatement, everyone? So I can tell examiner as the current assets have already increased over the last year by 2.11%, full stop. That's the commentary the examiner needs. You can watch my March 21 webinar for the commentary on the current ratios and everyone. But my only purpose today was to give you an idea about how you do use the Excel file. Now, I would encourage every student that if the question is asking for use the analytical procedures, make use of Excel and go to the Excel, copy the balance sheet in the spreadsheet, and in the spreadsheet make use of the formulas, and by the use of the formula find the current ratio. By the use of the formula find the debt to equity ratio, whatever the debt to equity ratio is. And in the same way you copy the P&L and L and you find the ratios of the P&L. Is that clear? Have you found some relevance of using the spreadsheets and how you connect the spreadsheet with your current ratios and debt to equity ratio? Right? I'll be spending 15 to 20 minutes tomorrow on the same exercise, uh, showing you how you copy paste the balance sheet and P&L in the Excel file, and how you convert the balance sheet and P&L into ratios, and how you translate the ratios into a commentary on the word processor. But I would prefer that you watch my March 21 webinar day 1, because that really guides you about the marking scheme of analytical procedure, how you do commentary on analytical procedure, how you write the answer of an analytical procedure. The only thing I need to guide you is about how you do it on a computer based environment and how you make use of an Excel. So if any one of you is good on Excel, you can use the formulas, you can use the formulas to find the results. Using Excel is so easier, right? And then you can translate your results to a briefing note by just telling examiner see the workings in the spreadsheet. So have any one of you found this practice beneficial? Do you think another 15-20 minutes tomorrow will excel it? That how you go down with the spreadsheet and translate spreadsheet into the ratio analysis? Waiting for your answers, everyone. Was this exercise beneficial? No, Kamil, you need to see, just 1 minute. Yes, I'll be spending another 20 minutes tomorrow on this, right? But Havel, if you don't use the spreadsheet and you directly do it on the word processor, you will not lose marks. But that is professionalism, right? That as a student of ACCA attempting a AAA paper, when the examiner is giving you a spreadsheet option, you use a spreadsheet option. I think this will just put a question mark on your professionalism as an ACCA student, even though you will not lose any marks. So I will be guiding you about that tomorrow. That if a student wants to skip Excel and wants to do everything on the Microsoft Word or a word processor, can it be possible? The answer is yes, right? So uh, even if you have a fear factor that I don't want to use Excel, I can just calculate the ratios on my calculator and write the answer. That's even possible. So I'll spend another 20 minutes tomorrow on the same exercise, September 18 paper, and I'll start my day 3 from the September 18 paper. We'll spend like 30 minutes on it tomorrow, and I'll guide you about another exercise on SOFP and PNL. And at the end of the exercise, I will still guide you that if you don't want to use it and you want to make it everything on the word processor, then that is also possible, right? So you will get two tracks tomorrow, a track of using an Excel, a track of not using Excel. Is that clear to everyone? So every day, I will encourage you on the practice platform. Have you been encouraged using practice platform today? Have you been encouraged using the blank workspace today? So if any one of you has watched the day 1 and you're watching the day 2 today, have you been encouraged both days of using the practice platform? And we have a day 3 tomorrow, we have a day 4, we have a day 5. Every day I will be encouraging you. So by the end of the 5th day, you have a lot of information on the practice platform, and you will hold the practice platform in a very right manner when 5 days are ended. So I'll start the day 3 tomorrow with 30 minutes on using Excel and taking the September 18 paper again in focus. And then I'll spend the later time of the day 3 on ethical, professional, and quality control issues, which is the main agenda of the day 3 tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the session today. And I hope you found the benefit of using computer based exams. The more beneficial, they increase your typing speed, they save your time. There are more advantages of working on a computer than on a paper. I hope you're mitigating your fear factor. A lot of students have a fear factor of a computer based exams. I hope that's going down with passage of time, and you're trying to gain confidence on a computer based platform. Everyone, the more you practice, the better for you, right? So keep practicing, keep practicing. The more you practice, you will gain confidence on the practice platform. You will increase your typing speed. You know how to copy, how to paste, how to cut, how to redo, how to undo, how to highlight something, how to underline something. You will learn that, right? Right? So thank you very much for this participating in the day 2 today of the webinar. I'm signing off from the day 2. Please drop your overall feedback of the day 2 in the next 1 minute, so I can gain some confidence ahead of my day 3. How was the day 2 today? And I'll meet you back with day 3 tomorrow. And we have an agenda of ethical, professional, and quality control issues tomorrow, right? So I'm signing off because we are using the computer based exam environment for the first time in the practice to pass, right? So for that reason, things can become a bit slower because I need to guide you. Last time we were doing the pen and paper exam, so things was very fluent, but for the first time I need to put the practice platform in front of you. I need to guide you how you change between practice platforms, how you change screens. So things gets a bit slower, but you need to understand the benefit is for the student to understand things, right? So have a nice day, study effectively. I'll meet you back on day 3 tomorrow. Take care, goodbye, and Allah Hafiz.